Manhattan at dawn, the skyline sharp and unforgiving. And rising above it all, like a monument to ambition itself, the Royce Dynamics Tower. Damon Royce didn't just win in business. He annihilated boardroom intimidation, companies crushed, competitors broken. The man had turned hostile takeovers into an art form, and the market bowed to him like subjects to a king. But then something happened that no one saw coming. Flash forward. Damon walking away from podium, shareholders screaming behind him, cameras flashing, headlines exploding across every screen in the city. Billionaire CEO risks empire for unknown artists. How does a man who had everything lose it all? And why would he choose to? Rewind 3 months. A shareholder event. Champagne and false smiles. And a woman's voice cutting through the crowd like a blade. You stole from my father. He thought he was untouchable. She thought she had nothing left to lose. They were both wrong. What happens when the most powerful man in New York meets the one person who refuses to bow? Have you ever watched someone who seemed invincible finally meet their match? This isn't just a love story. It's a war that nobody won and everybody lost. Hit that like button if you're ready for a story about power, revenge, and the one thing money can't control. Damon Royce was 36 years old and ruled Manhattan like a modern emperor. CEO of Royce Dynamics, corporate strategy firm worth $8 billion. His reputation preceded him into every room. The man who turned hostile takeovers into surgical strikes. The strategist who could dismantle a company in 3 moves and make it look like mercy. His philosophy was simple. Sentiment is expensive. Efficiency is profitable. Everything about him reinforced it. His office on the 60th floor, floor-to-ceiling windows, steel and glass, 0 warmth. His schedule, 16-hour workdays, 3 assistants rotating shifts, no personal life to speak of. His reputation, board members feared him, competitors fled from him. The market moved when he spoke. Damon didn't just succeed in business. He dominated it so completely that success became boring. So he found new targets. His latest focus, small to mid-sized firms in the design and architecture space. The strategy was elegant in its cruelty. Buy them cheap, absorb their contracts, eliminate redundancy, increase profit margins by 40%. One firm kept appearing in his acquisition reports. Haven Studio. Small, family-owned, bleeding money, perfect target. The analyst report was clinical. Founder deceased 6 months ago. Daughter currently running operations. Estimated runway, 6 months until bankruptcy. Recommendation, hostile acquisition. Low resistance expected. Damon circled the name with his Mont Blanc pen. Clara Wynn. Approved the takeover with a single signature. Never thought about her again. Why would he? She was a line item, a number, a strategic opportunity. But Clara Wynn had been thinking about him for months, and she was done being a number in someone else's spreadsheet. The annual Royce Dynamics shareholder gala was exactly what you'd expect. Designer gowns, 7-figure deals closed over cocktails, and Damon Royce at the center of it all, accepting congratulations like a king receiving tribute. Then a voice cut through the polite conversation. Clear, sharp, furious. Mr. Royce, we need to talk. He turned, already preparing his dismissal. Froze. A young woman stood 5 feet away, mid-20s, dressed simply, black dress, no jewelry, nothing that screamed wealth or power. But her eyes burned with something that made the room go quiet. Not fear, not hesitation. Pure, concentrated rage. I'm sorry, do I know you? Clara Wynn, Haven Studio, the company you're currently destroying. People step back. You didn't confront Damon Royce. Certainly not publicly. Certainly not like this. His expression didn't change. But his mind did. Calculating, assessing, intrigued despite himself. The design firm. That's just business, Ms. Wynn. Nothing personal. You stole contracts meant for my father's firm. Deals he spent 15 years building. Relationships he earned through integrity and quality work. Then you undercut us by 30%, poached our best clients with offers we couldn't match, and now you're circling like a vulture waiting for us to die so you can pick the bones clean. Someone gasped. A board member moved toward her. Damon held up a hand. "Stop. Your father should have competed better." The room held its breath. Clara stepped closer. Everyone expected her to break, to cry, to back down like everyone else eventually did. Instead, her voice got quieter, more dangerous. "My father is dead, Mr. Royce. Heart attack. 6 months ago. He died at his desk, working on a proposal for a project you'd already stolen, still believing his work mattered, that integrity meant something, that the world rewarded excellence instead of ruthlessness." She was shaking now, not with fear, with fury. "You took that from him. You took his life's work and turned it into a line item on your quarterly report. And you don't even remember his name." Silence. Thick. Suffocating. Damon should have walked away. Should have had security escort her out. Should have crushed her like he crushed everyone who challenged him. Instead, he heard himself ask, "What's his name?" Marcus Wynn. He didn't recognize it. And that fact, that simple, undeniable fact, hit him like a physical blow. "I'm sorry for your loss," he said, and meant it, which shocked him more than anything else in the conversation. Clara's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "No, you're not, but you will be." She turned and walked away, left him standing there with a glass of champagne in his hand, surrounded by New York's elite, feeling something he hadn't felt in over a decade, guilt, and something more dangerous, fascination. Damon couldn't stop thinking about her, which infuriated him. He pulled her file. Read everything. Haven's studio was indeed dying. She wasn't wrong about that. His company had systematically dismantled her father's legacy over 18 months, undercut every bid, poached every major client. It was textbook market elimination, efficient, profitable, completely soulless. Normal Damon would have accelerated the acquisition, finished it cleanly, moved on, but this wasn't normal Damon. He called his head of strategy at 11 p.m. "I want Clara Wynn hired as consultant." Silence on the line. Then, "Sir, we're in the process of acquiring her company." "Why would we?" "Because I want to watch her fail from up close. Prove she can't compete in this world. That her father's way of doing business is extinct for a reason." That's what he told himself. The truth was more complicated, more unsettling. He wanted her near him, wanted to understand why she didn't fear him, wanted to prove to himself that the guilt was temporary, that he could look at her every day and feel nothing. The offer arrived at Haven Studio 3 days later. 6-month consulting contract, $200,000 salary, strategic design integration for high-value clients. Clara's business partner practically begged her to take it. They were 60 days from bankruptcy. This money could save them. Buy time. Keep her father's dream alive a little longer. Clara knew it was a trap. Knew Damon was playing some twisted game. But she took it anyway. Because maybe, just maybe, she could learn his strategies from the inside. Find a way to save her company from a man trying to destroy it. First day, Damon's assistant led her to an office. Not a cubicle. A full corner office with windows and a view of the city. "Mr. Royce wants you comfortable." Clara didn't trust it. But she sat down at the pristine desk, opened her worn sketchbook, and started planning her own war. Two could play strategic games. Have you ever taken a job you knew was dangerous just because you had no other choice? Drop a comment. Would you have taken Damon's offer or walked away? I'm curious. Weeks passed. Damon found excuses, endless excuses, to summon Clara to his office. "I need your opinion on this proposal. Review these design concepts before the client meeting. Join the presentation. Your perspective might be valuable." His staff noticed. The Ice King was melting. Clara kept her guard up. Every interaction was a battlefield. Every conversation, a negotiation. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her intimidated, but she noticed things despite herself. The way Damon listened when she spoke. Really listened. Not just waiting for his turn to dominate the conversation like every other executive she'd met. He asked follow-up questions, challenged her ideas respectfully, actually implemented her suggestions. How he defended her in meetings when senior partners dismissed her input. Ms. Wynn's approach has merit. Continue, said with such authority that no one dared argue. The fact he remembered she took her coffee black, no sugar, and had it waiting on the conference table before she arrived for their morning reviews. One evening, working late on a pitch deck, Clara left her personal sketchbook open on his conference table, went to grab food from a break room. Damon found it. He should have closed it, should have respected her privacy. Instead, he flipped through pages, drawings of buildings, parks, community spaces, designs that would never see the light of day in his world, not profitable enough, not efficient enough, but beautiful, genuinely, achingly beautiful. One sketch stopped him cold, a community art center with large windows and open studios, labeled in neat handwriting, Dad's last project. He stood there for 10 minutes, just staring at it, at the dream of a dead man who believed in something beyond profit margins. When Clara returned and saw him looking, she froze. This is good work, Damon said quietly. It'll never get built. No investor wants a project that doesn't generate revenue. Then they're idiots. Clara looked at him, really looked, and for the first time saw past a ruthless ego. Saw someone tired, lonely, lost inside an empire that demanded everything and gave back nothing. Why did you really hire me, Damon? He should have lied, should have deflected with some corporate justification. Instead, because you made me feel something I thought I'd buried. What? Shame. He met her eyes, and something else I don't have a name for yet. The air between them shifted, charged with something neither wanted to acknowledge. Clara left without another word, but that night, alone in her apartment, she couldn't stop thinking about the look on his face when he'd seen her father's sketch. And Damon, alone in his office, started doing things he'd never done, halting aggressive negotiations that would hurt small businesses, approving community-focused projects with marginal profit potential, rewriting contracts to be less predatory. His board noticed, started asking questions. But Damon didn't care. Clara's sketches now covered one wall of his office, color bleeding into his world of steel and gray. And he was falling, hard, helplessly. For the first time in his life, Damon Royce wasn't in control. And part of him didn't want to be. 4 months into her contract, Clara was summoned to a board meeting. Unusual. Consultants didn't attend board strategy sessions. She sat in the back, silent, watching Damon command the room with that terrifying efficiency she'd come to recognize. He was brilliant at this, parsing data, making decisions, directing the flow of conversation like a conductor leading an orchestra. Then the CFO pulled up acquisition targets for Q4, and there, fourth on the list, Haven Studio. Acquisition delayed pending strategic assessment. Current recommendation: proceed within 30 days. Clara's blood turned to ice. After the meeting, she cornered Damon's assistant. How long has Haven Studio been on the acquisition list? The assistant hesitated, looked uncomfortable. Since before you were hired, Ms. Wynn. Everything clicked into place. The job offer, the attention, the kindness she'd started to believe might be genuine. It was all strategy, all manipulation, all part of watching her fail from inside. Clara didn't knock when she entered Damon's office. Just walked in, fury radiating off her like heat. You hired me to watch my company die, didn't you? Damon looked up from his laptop, saw her face, knew immediately. Clara, answer the question. Long pause. He could have lied, should have lied. Instead, quietly, at first, yes. She actually laughed, bitter, broken sound that made his chest ache. God, I'm an idiot. I actually thought. It's not like that anymore. Then what is it like, Damon? Because from where I'm standing, you're still the same man who destroyed my father's dream. You just did it with a smile this time. Made it personal. Made me trust you before you took everything. I stopped the acquisition. His voice was urgent now, desperate. 3 weeks ago, I told the board Haven Studio was off limits. Clara froze. What? I halted it, indefinitely. Removed it from all acquisition targets. Because He stopped. Couldn't say it. Not yet. Not like this. Because you what? Because losing you would cost more than any company is worth. Tears streamed down Clara's face. Her voice broke. That's not enough. Clara, please. You hired me as a game, as proof that my father's way was weak. That compassion was liability. And you know what the worst part is? She stepped closer. He'd never seen her look so devastated. I was starting to believe you'd changed. That maybe underneath all that ice was someone who actually cared about something beyond profit. But you're still just playing chess with people's lives. That's not true. Yes, it is. You stopped the acquisition to keep me around. Not because it was right. Not because you realized what you'd done was wrong. But because you wanted something and you're used to get what you want. She turned to leave. I love you. Clara stopped. Didn't turn around. That's not fair, she whispered. I know. She walked out. Didn't look back. And Damon stood alone in his empire, surrounded by her sketches, realizing he'd just lost the only thing that had ever truly mattered. The board discovered what Damon had done within 48 hours. Halting Haven Studios' acquisition cost them a strategic foothold in the design market, let a competitor swoop in and absorb 3 contracts Royce Dynamics had been positioning for. Emergency shareholder meeting. Mandatory attendance. Damon called to explain himself. You compromised a $40 million market position for personal reasons. I made a strategic decision based on long-term. Based on a woman you're romantically involved with. The lead investor leaned forward. Don't insult our intelligence, Damon. We watched you change over 4 months. Softer deals. Community projects. Approving initiatives with single-digit returns. This isn't the man we backed. Someone leaked it to the press. Someone always did. By morning, every business outlet had the story. Billionaire CEO risks empire for unknown artist. Damon Royce's emotional investment costs shareholders millions. The Ice King melts. Love scandal rocks Royce Dynamics. Stock dropped 12% in 2 days. Investors panicked. The board called another emergency meeting, this time with an ultimatum. Finalize the Haven Studio acquisition. Sever all ties with Clara Wynn. Prove to our shareholders that Royce Dynamics comes first. The chairman looked at him coldly, or stepped down. Damon sat in his office that night, the one covered with Clara's sketches, and faced the truth he'd been avoiding. For 20 years, he'd built this empire, sacrificed relationships, health, any semblance of a normal life. Believed that success was the only thing that mattered. That legacy was measured in market share and quarterly reports. But looking at those sketches, at her father's dream of community art center, at the beauty she saw in projects that would never be profitable, he saw what he'd become. Powerful, successful, respected, and completely, utterly hollow. Clara hadn't just challenged him. She'd reminded him of who he used to be before ambition consumed everything. Before he decided that efficiency was more valuable than humanity. The choice should have been obvious. The empire, the legacy, the power he'd spent his entire adult life building. But when he closed his eyes, all he saw was her face. The emergency board meeting was brutal. Shareholders demanding answers. Partners threatening lawsuits. The media circling like sharks. Damon stood at the podium, looked out at the people who'd followed him for 2 decades. I'm stepping down as CEO, effective immediately. Chaos. Shouting. Someone threw a folder. You're walking away from Royce Dynamics? From everything you built? Damon smiled. The first genuine smile some of them had ever seen from him. I'm walking towards something more valuable than market dominance. And if you can't understand that, then I've failed to teach you anything about what actually matters. He walked out of the building. Didn't take anything from his office except one sketch, the community art center labeled Dad's last project. The empire he built continued without him. And for the first time in his life, Damon Royce felt free. Would you have made the same choice? Empire or love? Power or humanity? The question isn't easy. Comment your answer. And subscribe if you believe some things matter more than success. 6 months later, in a renovated warehouse in Brooklyn, something beautiful was born. The Wynn Center for Community Arts. named after Marcus Wynn, founded by his daughter Clara. Free workshops for young designers, mentorship programs, exhibition space for artists who couldn't afford gallery fees. Everything her father had dreamed of creating, funded entirely by an anonymous donor. Except it wasn't anonymous. Everyone knew Damon Royce was spotted there regularly, not as a benefactor accepting gratitude, not as a CEO slumming with the common people, just as a man who showed up, helped set up chairs for workshops, listened to young artists present their portfolios. He looked different, lighter, no $5,000 suit, just jeans and a shirt that had paint stains on the sleeve, smile lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. A reporter approached him one afternoon, couldn't resist the story. "Mr. Royce, you walked away from billions. Any regrets?" Damon glanced at the center, at Claire inside teaching a design workshop, animated and alive, surrounded by students hanging on her every word. "I didn't lose control," he said. "I finally found it. Can you elaborate?" "For 20 years, I thought power meant owning things, controlling markets, crushing competition, building an empire so big that everyone had to acknowledge it." He paused. "But the most powerful thing I ever did was let go of your company, of the version of myself that believed success was the same as significance. And now, what do? I help. I listen. I learn what it means to build something that matters to people instead of something that just makes money." Inside, Clara caught his eye through the window. Their relationship was still complicated. Trust didn't rebuild overnight. Some wounds took time to heal. But she smiled. Small, genuine, the kind of smile that said, "I see you trying. Keep going." They had work to do, a future to figure out. Questions neither of them had answers to yet. But for the first time, Damon understood something fundamental. Love wasn't something you conquered, wasn't a market you cornered or a deal you closed. It was something you surrendered to. And surrender, it turned out, was the bravest thing he'd ever done. Damon Roy spent his life building an empire. It took losing everything to discover what power really means. True strength isn't domination. It's transformation. It's choosing humanity over ambition. It's being brave enough to admit when you've been wrong and strong enough to change. He thought he was hiring her to prove she'd fail, to confirm his worldview that sentiment was weakness and efficiency was everything. Instead, she proved he'd forgotten how to live. A love born from revenge became the one thing he couldn't master, his own heart. And in losing his empire, he gained something far more valuable, a life worth living. If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to remember that success isn't everything. And tell me, what would you choose? Empire or love? Power or peace? Like this video. Subscribe for more stories about transformation, redemption, and the courage to change. Because the best stories aren't about winning. They're about becoming. Somewhere in Brooklyn, in a center named after a man who believed integrity mattered more than profit, Damon and Clara stand side by side, reviewing blueprints for their next project. Partners, equals, building something that won't make them rich, but will make them whole.